So this summer, James Gunn's Superman movie is set to launch and to basically bring into the forefront James Gunn's new DC movie slash TV shared universe. And there's already reports coming from behind the scenes that there could be a problem. So I want to talk to you about it here on this video. First of all, I have a lot of respect for James Gunn. I've seen his films going back to the Trauma days. I thought he did a fantastic job with Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the kind of writer-director that really, I think, understands modern humor. I thought he did a great job with The Peacemaker as well. Like, everything he's done has been pretty good. I will say The Suicide Squad, I don't think it has that much replayability. There's not really a desire for me to watch that film. However, with Superman, it's a chance to tackle things a little bit different. And there have been some reports coming out now that this movie, it's to the point where some are saying that it could end up being very polarizing, while others are saying that it could end up being a straight up flop. Now, I want to first of all point out that there's a lot riding on this film because the Zack Snyder, DCEU that had started with Man of Steel was ended with Aquaman, and both Aquaman and Flash, both of those movies flopped. People did not connect with the DC heroes outside of maybe Batman as much as people thought that they would. And that's kind of unfortunate because The Flash and Aquaman both have potential to be a great, great stories. There are great stories there, especially with The Flash. But it became a situation where the audience, once they found out that the DCEU was going to get rebooted by James Gunn, that, I think, might be a big reason as to why they didn't go see those last few movies. Shazam 2 also falls into it. They kind of tried at first to be very edgy and dark, different from Marvel, and I think that the approach of being different works. It's just that even though I like Zack Snyder's Justice League, Zack Snyder and the way that he tells his movies, it doesn't really always work for DC. Like I said before, I liked Man of Steel and I love the Snyder Cut, but then you've got Batman v Superman, which even the extended cut, while better, was a really bad movie. And while I do sort of see that James Gunn is a totally different kind of filmmaker, maybe they went in the opposite direction. So Zaslav, who is the guy in charge of DC, hires James Gunn, and there have been some early screenings and there have been some complaints from people saying the movie is too comedic. Now, when it comes to James Gunn, he comes from the era of Trauma, and Trauma movies are very tongue-in-cheek, low-budget comedies. Trauma has been one of the overlords of low-budget movies going back to the VHS days and movies like The Toxic Avenger. Now, obviously, James Gunn has experience working under a big studio with a big budget, and I do believe that James Gunn does care about Superman. But the Superman story, while yes, you can have a bit of comedy and Superman is lighthearted, if the entire movie ends up being punchline after punchline after punchline after punchline, that's not going to work for Superman. That could work for a number of other characters like the Peacemaker or Star-Lord and that group. But for the Superman movie, if we start seeing a situation where it doesn't take itself somewhat serious and gags on everything, and then we have the Green Lantern and other characters being too comedic, that this movie could end up being super polarizing. It's almost like they went too far into the darkness with Zack Snyder, but now they went the complete opposite direction and haven't really found a balance. Now, again, I'm recording this video in March. I have not seen Superman. I will go see it when it comes out because I am interested. And I wonder if James Gunn is going to be pressured to do different edits and reshoots because that kind of happened with Snyder. If you go back, after Batman v Superman, they pretty much said, and this is a different leadership, but they pretty much said that DC movies had to be 2 hours. And that's why Justice League, the theatrical cut, the one that Joss Whedon did, was so short, but it was also so, I guess you can say, soulless. And then you've got Snyder's Justice League that actually had a lot of heart, mostly with Cyborg's story. I thought that was really important. But the thing about it is, when it comes to James Gunn, you kind of knew what you were getting. Now, if during these early meetings, if DC just gave James Gunn complete creative control, there's two ways to look at this. Number one, you're going to end up with a situation similar to what happened to Star Wars, where the wrong filmmaker, while having talent, made the wrong movie and put the series in the wrong direction. People do care a lot about Superman. Maybe not as much as Luke Skywalker. Depends on who you ask, I guess, right? Or it could be a situation where we look at it from the writer-director's point of view. Hollywood should be giving writer-directors free reign. Some feel that Hollywood should know what they're getting into. Look at the history of the filmmaker. Look at the kind of movies he makes. When you brought in Zack Snyder, you saw what he did with Watchmen. You saw what he did with Dawn of the Dead. He's kind of a dark type of filmmaker. With James Gunn, my thing that I was worried about, although I put it behind me, is I was worried that the movie would be too comedic and too gaga. And I like comedy, but not for the whole film, especially not the climax, for Superman's character. The key to making Superman work is to have a lot of heart. You have to have heart, and you have to have us care about Kal-El, about Jor-El, about what happens to him, about Lois Lane and his entire circle. Martha Kent, everyone. You have to get them to care. You have to get the audience to care about them. And Superman can do that, but is the world really going to accept truth, justice, and the American way, especially with how, in 2025, the political landscape has become a landmine. People are not even being patriotic for this country anymore. And when Superman was written, and throughout a lot of Superman's history, it was different. The key, though, is to get us to care about Lois, care about Clark, and care about where this story's going to go. Now, the reason as to why I have hope is because of what James Gunn did with Guardians Volume 3. And honestly, Guardians 1 and 2 did have a lot of heart, especially when it came to Star-Lord and his relationship with his parents. But Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was all about Rocket and telling his backstory. And it had a ton of heart. I haven't gone back to rewatch it. I'm not sure if I will for a while, talking about Guardians 3. But James Gunn has the ability as a talented writer to get us to care. But if we've got Superman behaving like Peacemaker, he might not be the guy. There have been people saying that if this movie flops, it's the end of Warner Brothers. And that's reports coming from the inside, not from content creators. We're talking about reports coming from the inside. The thing is, I'm very skeptical about that. Very rarely will one movie tank an entire studio. Very rarely, especially since Warner Brothers has other properties. Don't forget, we've got another Matt Reeves Batman movie coming in a couple years. Don't forget, they've got a lot of different IPs under their umbrella. That Looney Tunes movie just came out. I was going to go see it, didn't get a chance to yet. And that movie apparently was getting a lot of love. I don't think if this movie flops, it's the end of Warner Brothers. But if the movie does flop, it could mean the end of James Gunn's time as the head of DC, and it could be the end of DC movies outside of Batman. Because I feel like the audience has been jerked around too much. Even with the fact that James Gunn himself said that The Flash was going to tie up everything and create the new universe for him to play with, that's not what happened. That is not what happened. And Ezra Miller's personal problems, he's not coming back as the Flash to connect the two universes. So it just felt like a lazy answer, and for them to say, here's another movie for you to watch, and it flopped. And again, I liked The Flash. I really did like that movie a lot. The audience didn't. I might go into this Superman movie and love it, but if you've got Superman throwing F-bombs and, behaving like I mentioned, like Peacemaker or Star-Lord, that's not Clark Kent. There's a lot of comedy you can do with Clark Kent being this sort of clumsy, uncoordinated kind of introvert. There is a lot of humor you can tell with that. And that works. And if you're a good writer, you can do it. But when it comes to James Gunn's brand of comedy, will that work? Can they do it? I look forward to seeing what happens this summer, because I am going to go see the movie. And I am going to go into it hoping for the best. But if it doesn't do well, at this point, what can be done to save theatrical DC movies? Just do standalone movies and get rid of the connective tissue? Switch to doing just television and HBO Max specials? What do you do if they shut down the movie division? Movies like Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, those characters work best with a big screen and a big surround sound system, like you get in IMAX and Dolby. So it just, if it doesn't do well, there's a lot of pressure on James Gunn. I've talked about this before. If it doesn't do well, he might end up going back to Marvel. I mean, maybe not, but there's a chance his DC universe gets the plug pulled, and that could happen. And no matter how many ideas he may have, if the movie flops, but he says, okay, I set up all this stuff to get paid off later, unfortunately, Warner Brothers doesn't care. They don't seem to be in this for the long game. Don't forget that they kind of rushed into doing Justice League before actually getting, all of the characters introduced properly. Not on a computer, a video file on a computer. It's awful, awful. So the point is, there's a lot riding on this movie, man. Not the end of Warner Brothers, but certainly the end of DC. Albeit not forever. I'm sure they'll try again. Batman will always have a place in the movie theater. But Superman and the other characters, I don't know, man. People, you don't want people to say, damn, this guy screwed it up too. What do you think? Please comment. I want to hear from you. Take care.